For over 6 decades, Carol Burnett has been one of Hollywood's most beloved figures, a woman whose laughter, warmth, and grace lit up every stage and screen she touched. To millions, she's the queen of comedy, known for her sharp wit and kind heart. But behind her legendary smile lies a lifetime of experiences that few could imagine. After years of staying silent, Carol has finally broken her silence, and what she's revealed about Hollywood has left fans stunned. In a recent heart-to-heart, the 91-year-old icon opened up about the darker side of the industry she once called home. She spoke with startling honesty about betrayal, manipulation, and cruelty she witnessed from people who wore perfect smiles in public but carried shadows behind closed doors. And for the first time, she named names, revealing the 5 most ruthless and evil individuals she ever encountered in show business. These weren't just passing feuds or petty rivalries. According to Carol, these people wielded real power, the kind that could make or break careers, destroy reputations, and silence anyone who got in their way. What makes her confession so shocking is how many of these figures were once considered her friends. Now, as Carol looks back on her extraordinary life, she's finally ready to tell the truth. From backstabbing producers to jealous co-stars and the scandals no one saw coming, her revelations are changing how people see the golden age of Hollywood forever. So who were these 5 powerful figures that Carol Burnett called the most evil in Hollywood? And what really happened behind those closed studio doors? To most of the world, Carol Burnett represented everything pure about old Hollywood, charm, class, and humor that transcended generations. Her show, The Carol Burnett Show, became one of television's greatest achievements, and her infectious laughter was enough to brighten any home. But behind the laughter, the Hollywood Carol knew was far from perfect. In fact, it was filled with secrets, power struggles, and ruthless personalities who would stop at nothing to stay on top. Carol started her journey with hope and innocence. A young girl from San Antonio, Texas, she dreamed of nothing more than making people smile. When she first arrived in Los Angeles in the 1950s, she believed talent and kindness were all that mattered. She quickly learned that wasn't the case. Success in Hollywood, she discovered, often came at a price, and not everyone played fair. As her fame grew, so did the number of people who wanted to use her. There were studio executives who promised her big breaks in exchange for silence, producers who tried to steal credit for her work, and actors who smiled on camera but worked behind the scenes to push her aside. Carol never named them then, but she remembered every betrayal. She once recalled how one well-known comedian, someone she once admired, spread false stories about her after she refused to go along with his business deal. That was the first time Carol saw the mask slip in Hollywood. It was like discovering the monster behind the mirror, she later said. You realize not everyone wants you to succeed. Some only want to control you. Even as the Carol Burnett Show became a massive success, Carol's kindness made her an easy target. Some co-stars tried to undermine her leadership, while others mocked her behind her back for being too soft. She never fought back publicly, but she remembered everything. Her silence, she once admitted, wasn't weakness. It was wisdom. Sometimes, she said, the best revenge is outlasting them. Among the people she later described as truly cruel, a pattern began to emerge. They weren't villains in the traditional sense. They were powerful figures who manipulated, exploited, and humiliated others for gain. These were producers who silenced female comedians, actors who sabotaged colleagues, and executives who crushed careers without remorse. Still, Carol refused to let bitterness define her. Instead, she built her empire on something rare: decency. She often said that the laughter of her audience mattered more than the approval of executives or critics. That integrity became her greatest weapon in an industry where authenticity was often punished. Years later, when asked why she stayed quiet for so long, Carol gave a simple answer. I wasn't ready, but I'm not afraid anymore. Those words hinted at decades of pain hidden behind her smile. She had seen too much: the exploitation of young talent, the manipulation of fame, and the heartbreak of those chewed up and spit out by the system. Now, in her later years, Carol feels a sense of freedom. She has nothing left to lose and nothing to prove. With her legacy secure, she's finally chosen to reveal what she saw and who among Hollywood's elite showed her their true, darker selves. Her confessions aren't about revenge. They're about truth. The truth she kept locked away for decades to protect her career, her show, and her fans. But now, the world is finally hearing what Carol Burnett has kept inside all these years. As Carol Burnett rose to the top of the entertainment world, she quickly realized that the biggest danger in Hollywood wasn't failure. It was success. The higher she climbed, the more she became a target for those who wanted to control her image, her career, and even her laughter. Behind the charming smiles of Hollywood's brightest stars were egos, grudges, and secrets that no one dared to speak of aloud. In her early years, Carol met countless stars who seemed kind on the surface but revealed a much darker side once the cameras stopped rolling. One of the first lessons she learned was that power in Hollywood often came wrapped in charm. "Some of the most ruthless people I met," she said, "were the ones who could make a whole room laugh while stabbing you in the back." She recalled moments when producers would deliberately underpay her or change her creative ideas without permission, assuming she'd stay silent because she was a woman in a male-dominated industry. They underestimated her. Carol didn't shout or fight. She outperformed them, proving her worth through her work. But she never forgot the faces of those who tried to break her spirit. Then there were the so-called friends, fellow entertainers who used flattery as a weapon. Carol described how one of them would publicly praise her, only to privately spread rumors questioning her talent. "They smiled in your face and waited for you to turn around," she said. That betrayal cut deep, especially coming from people she once considered mentors. Over the years, Carol learned to identify the type: the power-hungry executive who saw artists as disposable, the jealous co-star who couldn't stand someone else's success, and the manipulative insider who thrived on others' pain. These were the people she later referred to as the most evil, not because they committed crimes, but because they destroyed joy, trust, and kindness wherever they went. One memory Carol shared involved a meeting with a well-known television executive who belittled her idea for the Carol Burnett show. He told her bluntly that a woman could never host a successful variety show. When she proved him wrong, that same man tried to take credit for her success. "It was then I realized," Carol said, "evil doesn't always shout. Sometimes it smiles and shakes your hand." What kept her going through those moments wasn't anger, but determination. Carol often said she refused to let bitterness take root because she'd seen what it did to others. She'd watched once great stars lose themselves to resentment and ego, and she vowed never to become one of them. Her quiet strength became her armor. Instead of publicly exposing those who wronged her, she focused on building something positive. A show built on laughter, kindness, and respect. Behind the scenes, she became a protector for young performers and women in comedy who faced the same kind of mistreatment she once did. In private, she'd quietly warn newcomers about the people to avoid, the sweet talkers with sharp knives. Still, even with her success, the shadows never fully disappeared. Some of the people she once feared continued to hold power in Hollywood for decades, using charm and influence to maintain their spotless reputations. But Carol saw through them all. She carried those experiences not as scars, but as reminders. Proof that integrity mattered more than fame. Now, decades later, as she reflects on her life and career, she no longer hides what she saw. In recent interviews and memoirs, she's begun describing, without naming, the individuals who embodied the darker side of show business. And soon she would reveal them, the 5 names that, in her words, taught me that Hollywood can be heaven one day and hell the next. When Carol Burnett finally decided to open up about her long career, she did it not to stir gossip, but to share the truth. The truth about how Hollywood's brightest lights could sometimes hide the darkest souls. For decades, she had quietly endured lies, deceit, and manipulation from people who claimed to be her allies. But now, with time and wisdom on her side, she felt ready to speak about the 5 people who, in her words, made me see the true face of evil in this business. The first, she said, was a powerful producer who tried to control her career during her early television days. He had promised her creative freedom, only to later attempt to own every piece of her work, her show ideas, her characters, even her name. When Carol refused to surrender, he blacklisted her for years. Studios suddenly lost interest, and projects mysteriously vanished. He smiled while ruining lives, she recalled. That's when I learned that power in Hollywood was a weapon. The second person was a comedian, someone Carol once considered a friend. They had shared stages, jokes, and even tears. But fame changed him. When Carol's star began to shine brighter, jealousy consumed him. He started mocking her in interviews, claiming she was just lucky. Behind the scenes, he tried to have her replaced in projects, spreading rumors that she was difficult to work with. Carol stayed silent at the time, unwilling to lower herself to his level. Decades later, she admitted that betrayal hurt more than any headline ever could. The third name was an influential talent agent, known for his ability to make or break careers. Carol described how he used his position to intimidate and manipulate young artists, especially women. She once witnessed him verbally destroy a promising actress just because she refused to give in to his demands. That was the day Carol realized how cruel the business could be, how dreams could be shattered in minutes by one man's ego. The fourth was a network executive who saw Carol's kindness as weakness. He constantly tried to undermine her decisions during the Carol Burnett show, cutting budgets and dismissing her creative instincts. But when the show became a massive hit, he took credit for its success. He taught me, Carol said, that some people will step on your back and call it leadership. And then came the fifth, the one that hurt the most. It wasn't an executive or agent this time, but a co-star, someone she had trusted like family. During the peak of her career, that person began leaking false stories to tabloids, painting Carol as cold and controlling. When she found out the truth, it broke her heart. "They didn't just lie," she said softly. "They took away the joy I felt in going to work." These 5 individuals represented for Carol everything wrong with Hollywood: greed, envy, deception, arrogance, and betrayal. She never mentioned them by name, choosing instead to let their actions speak for themselves. But those close to her knew who she meant. Each story, each lesson became a chapter in her personal survival guide, how to stay kind in a place that often rewards cruelty. And yet, through it all, Carol never let darkness win. She refused to become bitter or vengeful. "You can't fight evil with more evil," she said. "You fight it by being good, by laughing louder, and by outlasting them." That philosophy carried her through every setback. Decades later, she's still here, loved, respected, and admired, while many of those who wronged her have long been forgotten. For Carol, revealing these truths wasn't about revenge. It was about closure, showing the world that even Hollywood's golden age had its demons, and that kindness, though often underestimated, can outlast cruelty every time. Despite facing deception, betrayal, and manipulation from the most powerful people in Hollywood, Carol Burnett emerged not just unbroken, but stronger. Her laughter, once a shield against cruelty, became a beacon of resilience. The same industry that tried to undermine her eventually celebrated her genius, and her legacy became proof that integrity could survive, and even thrive, in a world often ruled by ego. After years of enduring manipulation and falsehoods, Carol learned to set boundaries. She refused to work with people whose intentions were clear, even if it meant turning down lucrative opportunities. "I realized that no paycheck was worth losing myself," she said. That decision allowed her to maintain control over her career and protect her happiness. She surrounded herself with collaborators who respected her creativity and her kindness, creating an environment where her talent could shine without fear. Her survival in Hollywood wasn't just about strategy, it was about character. Carol often emphasized that remaining compassionate and authentic in a business fueled by competition and jealousy wasn't easy, but it was necessary. She nurtured younger talent, giving advice, encouragement, and mentorship to those navigating the same pitfalls she had faced. By supporting others, she turned her experiences with betrayal into lessons for the next generation, ensuring that kindness had a place even in an unforgiving industry. Over the years, Carol's honesty about the darker side of Hollywood has resonated with fans and colleagues alike. Her stories remind everyone that fame and glamour often come with hidden costs, that the smiles seen on screen don't always reflect the truth behind closed doors. Yet by speaking openly about the challenges she faced, she redefined what it means to be a Hollywood legend. Her courage to reveal the 5 most manipulative and evil people she encountered isn't just a personal confession. It's a testament to the resilience of those who refuse to let negativity dictate their lives. Even now, in her 90s, Carol continues to inspire. She embraces life with humor, grace, and humility, proving that adversity can strengthen rather than destroy. Her story shows that the real measure of success isn't awards, fame, or fortune. It's the ability to maintain integrity, kindness, and authenticity even when surrounded by darkness. For viewers, her revelations are more than shocking Hollywood gossip. They're a lesson in courage, perseverance, and self-respect. Carol Burnett's legacy isn't just the laughter she brought to millions. It's the unwavering strength she displayed in the face of betrayal and manipulation. By naming the 5 most evil people she ever encountered, she reminds the world that surviving Hollywood requires more than talent. It requires wisdom, resilience, and a heart that refuses to harden. As she looks back on her extraordinary life, it's clear that Carol Burnett not only survived the harsh realities of Hollywood, she triumphed over them. And while the industry may have tried to dim her light, her laughter, warmth, and integrity continue to shine brighter than ever. Proof that even in the face of evil, goodness endures.